This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. I've got a hot take here. I think PRS might be the most important guitar company there is in 2025. And I wanted to do a video just talking about it. This is a guitar that they've let me borrow. This is an NF53. Actually, the guitar that changed Rhett's mind. You know, he found a PRS that he liked. I was just watching this video on that. There is Gibson, there's Fender. PRS is like the number 3, I think, in the sort of 3 biggest guitar companies. I think that's right? But I think PRS is actually doing the more important stuff in 2025. Let's explore why. Yeah, this is just me thinking about stuff. I'm not telling you what to do. I don't have any affiliation with PRS, but I do have a conversation going on where I can talk to Eric at PRS, and they let me borrow these guitars for a bit and show them off, which is obviously of a benefit to them, and for me personally, I get to check out some of these guitars, and I can talk about them negatively if I want to, but generally I can just talk about them fairly. So there's a PRS Myles Kennedy that I tried, which is basically the same sort of thing as this guitar. There's a couple of key differences in terms of pickups, but it's essentially the same thing. What I did say about that guitar in the video, I did gig it. The only issue for me I felt was like it's a bit heavy. This guitar solves that. I'll put up the weight, how much it weighs exactly. This has got to go back to them like this week, but this is a Swamp Ash guitar, a top-loading Tele-style bridge, Narrowfield pickups, which actually work in terms of sounding good, but I also did a video with some higher gain stuff just earlier and sat up next to my monitor. They do the job. So I think they're onto something with these pickups. Not that there are not other noiseless pickups out there that don't do a perfectly fine job either, but these ones work and I think sound pretty good. The these tuning pegs, this new style, I actually think look really pretty stylish. It's all very comfortable, you know, sort of like a decent sized telly neck. It's, yeah, I would say maybe something like a 50s Les Paul sort of profile, or like a medium C Strat. You know, there's a fair handful, but not slim, not baseball bat. It's generally just great all round. The reason that I think that PRS are more important than some of the other companies is that I think they're trying to push things forward in a way that in some ways the guitar community in general I think is a little bit resistant to. You know, things like even simple stuff like locking tuners does not necessarily make it onto some of the higher end stuff, you know, in the other companies, particularly because I think the other companies tend to be backwards looking and sort of nostalgia focused, whereas PRS I think take elements of that nostalgia. Of course, like a telly shaped guitar, PRS shaped guitar, they are definitely, these two are sort of retro leaning bolt on designs, but with some important things. So like even on the Silver Sky, you know, we got the 22nd fret, we got a truss adjustment at the headstock, and things that are not that easy to find in general. So like a 22 fret Strat guitar with a 7.25 inch radius, I would suggest is not the most common instrument with a slightly thicker neck. So it's kind of like an interesting blend of modern and old, also locking tuners on here, that I think is pretty neat. The other thing with PRS is that they've also got like good guitars across the whole range, and I don't think they make anything that's particularly bad. Like even the entry level SE stuff is pretty good guitars that I would say that I could take to a gig and play them, and I have done, like the CE24 Satin. Other companies either don't do anything in that price range, or the stuff that they do in that price range is very much focused on like the bottom line and stuff like that. So you get things like ceramic pickups, quite skinny necks, that sort of stuff. You know, whereas I think PRS actually tried to, it seems to me at least, spec these things closer to the actual models. Like the PRS Silver Sky SE is spec quite close. The main sticking point for me is the 2-point trem instead of 6-point. Really, for me, the only area where it's like, why did they make that decision? But in general, like they tend to spec these things pretty close. Like the DGT as well. The DGT SE I experienced was a really great guitar. Yes, it's quite expensive for an Indonesian-made guitar, but actually I was really impressed with it. The other kind of key indicator for me is like which artists, where are they going, and when they go to a certain place, what are you seeing them actually get out of their signature relationships? And so I can kind of see like the Mark Lettieri Fiore, significantly different enough from the rest of the PRS line that it should exist. Likewise, the Silver Sky, you know, PRS weren't making like an S-type bolt-on guitar for quite a few years, right? Not at that sort of level. When you think about like signature Strats or signature Les Pauls, you know, a signature of a signature, I think the signature guitar that you'd get with PRS potentially is going to be significantly different and stand out more than like a signature guitar made by one of the bigger companies like Gibson or Fender. In my opinion, seems to be the thing. Even Ibanez, like their signature guitars, except for like the Tim Henson model or the Gem or the Pia, they tend to kind of, I think, fall into, you know, basically stock guitars with a few little tweaks, right? And certainly the idea, in my opinion, with a signature guitar is that you'd be getting something that you couldn't just get off the shelf before it existed. And I don't know if you'll be able to catch it on the thing here. The finish does seem to be quite thin on this. Like the guitar does sound great unplugged, plays well. I think the NF53 with the Swamp Ash see-through white with the black looks the best. And I think that's a really classy looking instrument. This kind of is inoffensive in a lot of ways, whereas I think the Silver Sky is actually yeah, I would just all round say, like, if you're feeling like the stigma of PRS is too much for you, that's fine, but maybe, you know, don't be afraid to give one a try if you're thinking, like, is it just people sort of just saying things because they're given guitars for free? I'm not, and I'm saying, like, honestly, like, there'll probably be a bunch of people in the comments that are not fans of PRS, but I think, yeah, they changed my mind on PRS in general anyway. This is my favourite one that I played. That NF53 is great too. Confident that you could be picking up a guitar off of the shelf that plays pretty well, sounds good, is ready for a gig, doesn't really need any upgrades, might be lightweight as well, you know, like this one and this one. You could be getting a great deal. It might have the wrong headstock, but I think they are a slightly more forward-looking company, whereas Gibson and Fender these days, I think, tend to be somewhat sort of based on nostalgia. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.